Welcome to Audit and Assurance. Today we want to look at corporate governance. What is corporate governance? What is it? So corporate governance. The word corporate means company, right? What about governance? We want to look at how it is How it is controlled and operated. So, if you are studying corporate governance, you really want to know how companies should be operated. So, corporate governance is the system by which companies are operated, controlled, directed, managed, ruled, governed, directed. You get it? So that's corporate governance. How is it controlled? How is it managed? How is it governed? That's corporate governance, right? So corporate governance now, on corporate governance, if you are running a company, we do have public companies, we do have private companies. So there are some of the exemptions that are given to small companies, right? But just know that big companies, all the companies that I'm talking about, they should have the board of directors. They should have the board of directors. Before I explain this, let me share with you a sort of a background. Who owns the company? Everyone knows. The shareholders are the owners of the company, but they are not the ones who run the company, because there is what we call separate legal identity. The ones who run the company are different from the one who owns the company. So the shareholders, they do appoint the directors who gives a direction to the company. So they appoint the directors to run the company on their behalf. So that means the directors have a responsibility. Their responsibility is to what? Is to prepare the financial statements. They do run the company, right? But when you are doing corporate governance now, you have to be specific. They do appoint the executive directors. So, on the executive directors, who is their boss? On the executive directors, their boss is called the chief executive officer, or we call him the managing director, MD. So, we have the executive directors who are appointed by the shareholders to run the company on their behalf. Why do they need the executive directors to run the company? It is because they do have the qualifications, they do have the experience, skills, expertise, so they do have the knowledge, so they need them to run the company on their behalf. But we don't want the agent's problem. We say that when the directors run the company, they must run the company in the best interest of those who have appointed them. They must run the company in the best interest of the shareholders, right? So the issue is now when they do prepare the financial statements, the shareholders, they will then hire the external auditors. They will then hire the external auditors. What is their responsibility? Their responsibility is to audit the financial statements, right? So they audit the financial statements that have been prepared by the directors. Because the directors, they can't prepare and review them. Because the shareholders, they are afraid of two things. There might be errors, there might be fraud. So it means they are not trusting the directors. So yes, you must not trust. You must apply professional skepticism, right? So the issue here is now, we are saying a company should have, now back to corporate governance, the company should have the board of directors. The board of directors, yes, so that's where the directors, they will meet. So they will have meetings, they would discuss, they would contribute the strategies, they would talk about how a company should be run, they would discuss key things. All right. So who will be in the board? Obviously the directors. But which directors? The executive what? Directors. We need them to be in the board of directors. Because when you are running the company, you don't just run a company. The first thing is they have to agree. They have to contribute strategies. Then after, these executives, they will then go back and run the company. So in the board of directors, there are executive directors. Yes, there are executive directors, including what? Including the CEO will be there in the board of directors. Then we also need what we call the NEDs. We also need the NEDs, the non-executive directors. We need them in the board of directors. Why? These people, they are hired by the shareholders. These people must be independent. We are saying they must be independent of the company. They must not have they must not have any relationships with the executive directors. They must remain independent. So remember, even in the board of directors, the people, they do what? So why do we need the non-executive directors? We need them so that they will be able to protect the interest of the shareholders, to protect the interest of the owners. So in the board of directors, there will be executive directors and the non-executive directors. So we need them, the needs to protect the interest of the shareholders. We also need the executive directors because these are the ones who will be running the company. Here we say the executive directors are the employees. They run the company. They have the managerial responsibility. These ones, they are not the employees of the company. Hence, they do not have the managerial responsibility. But we just need them. You won't find them in the company. They do not run the company, these ones. But when the directors are now meeting to make decisions, to contribute strategies, to discuss how they should run the company, we need them in the board of directors. When they vote, we need them in the board of directors to protect the interest of the shareholders. These ones, we need them because they are the ones who will be running the company. So they also need to be there. They must be there so that when they run the company, they run the company on what they have agreed in the board of directors. But just know that the board has to be balanced. For example, if we have 4 executive directors, it simply means that we must have 4 non-executive directors. So that means if you read a scenario and you find that there are 4 executive directors and we have 2 non-executive directors, that means following corporate governance, you must say that the board is not balanced. The board must be balanced. So what advice will you give to that company? You tell them that the board is not balanced, so they have to appoint 2 more non-executive directors to make the board balance. Are we together? Right. So that's it. But now just know that in the board of directors, who leads the board? Who leads the board of directors? It is what? I guess, I hope your guess is good as mine. Who leads the board? It is the chairman or the chairperson. So the chairman or the chairperson leads the board. But the chairman, again, must be independent. In other words, what kind of director? You must be a NED, a non-executive director. So I've seen people being confused with the CEO and the chairman. Who is above who? Chairman is the boss. When it comes to running the company, it is the CEO who runs the company, but the CEO will run the company according to what they have agreed in the board of directors. Even in terms of power, the power that the CEO has, it is whatever the board of directors will decide to give. So, the CEO has a responsibility to run the company, but the chairman has the responsibility to run the board. So, are you seeing that in the board of directors, we have the executive and the non-executive, and their boss is the chairman, who is independent. So, we say that the chairman obviously has a final say. So, this person must be independent of the company, so that you'll be able to make decisions that are not biased. You get it? And someone might ask, saying that, is it okay to have a person who is the CEO and the chairman at the same time? No, it's not. If someone is the CEO and chairman at the same time, that means they are not following corporate governance. Corporate governance says that these two positions must be held by two different people to avoid the concentration of power. Alright? So you can't be the CEO and the chairman at the same time. Again, if you find that someone is the CEO and chairman at the same time, what advice will you give? Okay, the reason why you can't be a CEO and the chairman at the same time, we said we want to avoid concentration of power, we want to avoid too much power, because remember, it will be like it's your company, yet the shareholders are the owners. So, and also the chairman must be independent. So, being a CEO means you are the chief executive officer. It means you are the employee. It means you are involved in the management of a company. So you can't be the CEO and the chairman at the same time. So if you are the CEO and the chairman, it simply means that you are no longer fit to hold this position, because you are also an employee. You have lost your independence. You get it? So if you find that you are the CEO and the chairman at the same time, if you want to follow corporate governance, we would say that the person must resign as a chairman. You can't continue to work as a chairman because you are no longer independent. You get it? Right. So that's it. That's the board of directors, the chairman. We also have the secretary who will be writing minutes, who will be writing what will be discussed in the board of directors. After the secretary wrote minutes, they will be reviewed by the chairman and then signed. All right? And the executive directors, they do run the company, right? They do run the company. The question is, who will pay them? We are now talking about their remunerations. So corporate governance requires 3 committees. Number 1, there must be remuneration committee. Number 2, there must be nomination committee. Number 3, there must be audit committee. So these 3, it's a must. If you want to have risk committee, if you want to have the risk committee, it's a choice. So these 3, it's a must to have these 3 committees. Number 1, if we say company is following good corporate governance, they must have a remuneration committee. All these committees must consist of non-executive directors. we don't want any executive director to be in this committee. We want people who are only independent. So we are saying there must be remuneration committee. The group of NEDs, non-executive directors, who will be setting the remuneration packages for the executive directors. So these people, they are independent. So they will pay the executive directors the salaries, that the remuneration that is fair. Because we don't want them to pay more than what is necessary. But my question is, why setting a group of people who will be responsible for setting the remuneration packages? Why can't you just say, you are a non-executive director, we are now saying that you are responsible. Why can't you just take one person to be responsible for the remuneration, for setting the remuneration packages for the executive directors? The reason is, if we set, if you require one person to be responsible, it is very risky because they might be bribed. But we want a group. So a group, if we have a group, then we are safe. Because it is difficult to bribe a group. So what remuneration committee that will be responsible for setting the salaries of the executive directors? You get it? So that they'll be able to pay them the packages that is fair. And that will also even attract other directors. All right? So this is needed because no director, no executive director should be involved in setting his or her own pay. That means the CEO can't pay himself. Other executive directors can't pay themselves. We need the remuneration committee. Then we have nomination committee. Again, it's a group of names. What do they do? Nomination. This, they appoint or even remove the executive directors. Imagine if CEO, the chief executive officer, was responsible for hiring and firing employees. It was very risky because he could even hire just his friends, or even families, or even people who agree to vote in favor of him in the board of directors. So we want people who are independent, who will be able to hire people with certain qualifications that are expected, relevant qualifications, who will be able to hire the best person for the job. Because what we want to avoid, we want to avoid having the risk of job for boys. Why? Because we say the job is not for boys, but it's for men. You get it? So that's nomination committees responsible for hiring and firing of employees. We have the audit committee. Why having audit committee? Of which area on I said that we have the external auditors who are responsible for auditing the financial statements. Okay, the issue is the audit committee is there. They are the ones who review the integrity of the financial statements. So I do believe if we have audit committee, we'll say now we have strong corporate governance because we do have people who audit the financial statements. We also have the group of non-executive directors who are hired by the shareholders to review the financial statements again. So if they review and they say there is integrity, and the external auditors, they do audit, they say there is integrity, we are receiving information from different people who are independent. So even our stakeholders will then even trust the financial statements. That means it enhances the credibility of the financial statements. All right. So that means the audit committee is an important group. So, but for them to review the integrity, to do certain things, we need someone in the group with the financial expertise. So we say we need minimum of 3 people, but one with what? With financial expertise. Someone who will be able to understand what's going on in the financial statements. It might be standards, it might be what? That's it. So, sometimes even the external auditors, they would want help. They would want to ask something from the internal auditors. For example, you guys, you did stock check. Can you tell us something about maybe inventory? Or maybe you want to confirm something? So, the external auditors, remember, they are called the external, meaning they must remain independent. So if they want something from the internal auditors, they must not communicate with them, because if they communicate with the internal, it will be very risky, because they are communicating with the employees. So it is likely that if they communicate directly, they will lose their independence. So we need audit committee, because audit committee will then act as a channel of communication. So the external auditors, if they want something from the internal, they will communicate with the audit committee, then the audit committee will then communicate to internal auditors. Then the auditors, internal auditors, they will then give a feedback, then they will pass it back to the external auditors. So audit committee is also important. So these are 3 names that must be there. That's corporate governance. Thank you very much for your time. And don't forget to subscribe.